Anyway, what do memes actually do? Professor Dennett tells us they spread beliefs, like beliefs in God. So, are all beliefs spread by memes, or just the ones that anti-religious critics don't like? Is there a meme for atheism? Professor Dennett offers us a simple taxonomy of memes, and on the basis of that, I think they might. And since there is no compelling scientific evidence for these things anyway, is there a meme for believing in memes? Now that seems to me to be a real problem. Maybe belief in God is caused by memes. What about atheism? Anyone familiar with intellectual history will spot the pattern immediately. My ideas are exempt from the general pattern I observe for other people's ideas, so they're explained away. And I worry slightly that Professor Dennett heads in that direction at one or 2 points. Let me ask this question once more. Is it just belief in God that is a meme? Surely atheism is as well. Now, I emphasize that point because last month I debated Susan Blackmore, England's most able defender today of the meme hypothesis, at the Oxford Union, a debate on the meme. And we had a great time talking about every aspect of this, and I put precisely that point to her. Is atheism a meme? Her response was immediate and enthusiastic. Yes, it is. So I want to ask a question. Is Dr. Blackmore wrong when she affirms atheism is a meme? Because if so, you can see surely all viewpoints are affected in the same way, whether religious or anti-religious. Which, I wonder, is mimetic orthodoxy and which is mimetic heresy? The same way as belief in God. And I would argue with equally negative consequences. But my real question is actually this. How would Dr. Blackmore and Professor Dennett be able to settle that particular point scientifically? If they are not able to do so, then we have a non-scientific debate about imaginary entities hypothesized by analogy with the gene. And we all know how unreliable arguments based on analogy can be. Witness, for example, the fruitless search for the luminiferous ether in the late 19th century based on a hypothesized analogy between light and sound. It was analogically plausible, but it was non-existent. The analogy was simply invalid. Richard Dawkins tells us that memes are merely awaiting their Crick and their Watson. I think they are merely waiting for their Mitchelson and Morley. Finally, I was glad to see Professor Dennett and I have so much in common. We both love democracy. We both love freedom, science, and lots of other things we can explore later. We both also abhor violence and oppression. And Professor Dennett in this book argues that religion has on occasion encouraged both of those. And I agree with him. That's a fact of history. Yet one of the things I most regret about this book is that it excoriates religionists for their contributions to conflict and violence down the centuries, but doesn't note atheism's failures in precisely those areas. I searched in vain for even a mention of Lenin or Stalin, each of whom launched violent programs of repression based on their atheist worldviews against Christianity and Islam. That's a fact of history as well. Now, Professor Dennett might respond, and in fact, I think he would respond, by saying that these are not typical of atheism. And I would believe he'd be entirely right to make that response. But neither are the excesses of violence and intolerance that he does mention in the book typical of religion. One simply cannot represent the pathological elements of any movement, whether religious or anti-religious, as if they were normal or typical. Few of us in this audience tonight are in favor of fanaticism, but it's clearly possible to be a fanatical atheist as much as a fanatical religionist. It's fanaticism that seems to me to be the problem, not so much religion or indeed anti-religion. In Oxford at this moment, we are indeed facing a threat from one of the most fanatical groups in British society today, animal rights protesters. They are not religious. They are driven by an ideology, by a worldview. Surely, it seems to me, our common enemy is the fanatic first and foremost. But it's a clear factual error to assume that this is limited to or necessarily characteristic of religion. I must end. And I do so by repeating my thanks to Professor Dennett for writing this book, and my apologies to him and indeed to you for only being able to engage so briefly with so few themes in this book. I believe it helps move the debate about the place of religion into a new and more helpful place, and look forward to our interaction on these themes. Thank you.
Well, that was absolutely terrific. I think it would be the right thing to do for Dan to have a chance to respond perhaps to some of Alister's points. If we could perhaps have a few comments before we open it out.
Sure. First of all, Alister, you're pounding on an open door. Yes, of course, scientific ideas are memes, and atheism is a meme. Yes, that's not the point. The point is not to criticize anything by calling it a meme. On the contrary, it's to provide an explanatory basis. So, yes, of course, Dr. Blackmore was right to say, yes, of course, atheism is a meme. How many of you think there are words? How many of you think that words are in your ontology? You believe in words? Or are you not so sure that words exist? I think words exist, but if you think about them, they're extremely puzzling. What are they made of? They're not sounds. They're not made of ink. It turns out that the concept of a word is a very abstract. We're so familiar to us that we don't tend to realize just how strange words are as a category. If you believe in words, then you believe in memes, because words are memes that can be pronounced. Then there's the memes that can't be pronounced, like fashions and other behaviors. And then there's large complexes of memes. The existence of memes is not in doubt at all. The importance of a theory of memetics is still to be debated. Alister is right that, and he cites two, Maurice Bloch and Simon Conway Morris, who have expressed their dislike of the concept of memes. Have I dealt with them? Yes. Are they serious critics? No. In neither case, in particular, I think Maurice Bloch's animadversions against memes are thoughtful but distinctly answerable, and I think I've dealt with them in several. My book has several appendices that deal with the objections to memes, and I think that there one finds good answers to the best criticisms by the anthropologist Dan Sperber and his colleagues, for instance, and others. So the idea that what you've heard is a sort of reductio ad absurdum of memes is, I think, just absurd. You haven't heard a reductio ad absurdum of memes. The concept survives quite well for another day. He says correctly that he finds in my book much speculation, much hypotheses, and not much evidence. Well, there's some evidence, and I say very explicitly throughout the book, this is just a sketch of a theory so that you can see what it would be like to have a natural theory, a theory of religion as a natural phenomenon. I explicitly say, I don't claim to have proved any of this. If you don't like my theory, replace it with another one that's better, one that is better supported by evidence. I give a sketch of what I think to be the best hypotheses that have been devised so far, and I do talk about the evidence for them, and there is actually significant evidence for them. I don't claim to have confirmed any of it. That's the point of the book, is to call for more research, including research that doesn't make use of the concept of memes. The main importance to me of the concept of memes is precisely to get away from the otherwise extremely attractive position which he actually mentioned, that if religions have survived and are so dominant in human life, it must be because they aid our survival. Maybe, maybe not. If you assume that at the outset, you're not being objective. They may aid our survival. They may only survive. They may survive as sort of unshakable habits. If you resist that hypothesis at the outset, you're not doing objective science. The way to find an objective standpoint from which to investigate the hypotheses is to acknowledge that cultural items can spread whether or not they're good for us. Graffiti, spray can graffiti, pornography, all sorts of dubious or fashions. You don't have to suppose that they're good for us to look at them with an evolutionist's eye. Some of them are wonderful for us. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Maybe some of the memes of religion are really good for us. That is an open question which we can explore scientifically.